a lot of inefficiencies that are associated with traditional drug discovery that makes the process very slow and expensive.
We have also heard again and again in time that drug discovery is a very expensive process. It's a very slow process. How is AI and machine learning transforming it, and where do you see the bottleneck today?
Traditional drug discovery has been hypothesis driven. AI/ML now is transforming that into a hypothesis driven drug discovery into data driven drug discovery. Traditional one is expensive, sequential, and that takes me many years. This, if you are lucky, fortunate, you can do it in months' time. The quality of decision making tremendously improves in drug discovery. For example,
Hello and welcome to TAL Radio podcast. In this episode, we are exploring how artificial intelligence and machine learning are transforming drug industry. To talk about it and more, we have Dr. Raju Pusapati, VP Life Sciences, Solix Technologies. Welcome, Dr. Raju. Welcome to the podcast.
thank you so much.
I'm very curious, what is life sciences? What is it that you do? How you landed up doing what you do today? And what happens in this industry?
So, life sciences, the meaning of that is itself in the two words, life sciences, right? So, anything to do with the sciences or the knowledge or field of study that has to do anything with life, it constitutes life sciences. It's a broad umbrella, fundamental fields like botany, zoology, chemistry, because life is partly chemistry, right? A lot of chemical reactions happening within your body. That all the processes you eat, sleep, everything is chemistry, what we call biochemistry. So the fundamental sciences, botany, zoology, chemistry, plus the applied sciences. Using this, how do you apply for human benefit, right? You can like drug discovery, identifying vaccine, developing vaccines, drug discovery, and developing antibodies to cure human diseases or animal diseases. Everything, the applied part also constitutes under life sciences umbrella, broadly speaking. This is broadly what is life sciences. Yeah.
What is it that you do? What's your role in it?
Yeah. So before I tell my current role, where I landed up, it'll be interesting, which is completely different from what I actually studied.
Okay.
My skill set, what my training is. But before I come to that, my background has been in biology. I'm a trained biologist and pharmacologist, which is one of the small sections under life sciences. Life sciences, as I said, is very vast, right? Since after my training, my PhD in biology and pharmacology, I've been associated with drug discovery for the last 15 years, both industry, in academia, industry. But interestingly, last 1 year, I moved to a company called Solix Technologies in the Pharma division, which is called Solix EAA Pharma, as a VP of Life Sciences, supporting or providing subject matter expertise, a domain expertise of drug discovery to develop AI/ML solutions for drug discovery, to enable drug discovery. So, which has nothing to do what I've been trained. I'm a biologist, but now I'm employing these skills and to developing products that support drug discovery.
What do you mean when you say products? What kind of products do you develop?
These are AI/ML enabled products, software solutions. So when you say products, I would say rather solutions. A lot of inefficiencies that are associated with traditional drug discovery that makes the process very slow and expensive. So with the explosion of technologies, especially computational technologies, what we are calling them as AI/ML, artificial intelligence and machine learning, where you can train models and then apply that to create solutions and develop solutions that will significantly impact drug discovery in terms of efficiency, productivity, and also expediting the whole process.
We have also heard again and again in time that drug discovery is a very expensive process. It's a very slow process. How is AI and machine learning transforming it, and where do you see the bottleneck today?
The traditional drug discovery is, as you just mentioned, rightfully mentioned, is extremely slow and very expensive. because the longer it takes, the more money you put for everything, right? It's the fact that it's slow itself contributes to the cost
I also want
associated.
to ask you, why is it so slow?
Because so let me go into the statistics of
Sure, yeah.
to put into perspective. Let me start with statistics. So to bring a novel drug into the market, it takes about 8 to 10 years. I'll answer your question.
Yeah, yeah,
Why
sure.
it's slow?
Yeah.
It takes about 8 to 10 years into the market,
Okay.
right? So and then it takes $1 billion to $2 billion to get discovered in a molecule, clinical trials, drug approval, regulatory, and finally into the market, $1 to $2 billion, right?
Okay.
So what is not discussed? This is traditional statistics out there, but what is not discussed is where does all this time and money go? Where does it disappear? Mm. There are several bottlenecks, but I'll talk about 3 bottlenecks which are very consequential. One is target selection. The first step in drug discovery starts with target selection. So identifying or discovering the right target is very essential. And actually choosing the wrong target is a very original sin in drug discovery.
Okay.
Because it lays the foundation for all the downstream processes. So your foundation needs to be very strong, which is the correct target selection. So target selection involves a multitude of activities that previously are not properly understood or poorly done, because the tools that enable an efficient target selection or target identification, target validation, not available previously. But with AI and ML, you can train the very complex biological data and make target associations to the disease. So what happens during target selection is like you need to identify the correct target. But most of the clinical trials that fail is because some of them, the right targets are not chosen. Now we have the tools to identify the right target, increase the probability of success in the clinic. So one of the most important part identifying a target is associate with the disease. If you associate a target with the disease, with the human disease, then you have actually done the right thing to be successful in clinical trials, and drug will be successful. So most of the several drugs fail in clinic because the target that has been discovered or being working on for drug discovery, they realize that only in clinical trials when it's too late, or further down in the drug discovery pipeline, even at the stage of a late stage preclinical drug discovery efforts. So by that time you have sunk several years and also millions of dollars before they realize that you have chosen the right target. So AI is this is one of the bottlenecks, in my opinion, that right targeting, selecting the right target is one of them. The second one is the data fragmentation. So with data fragmentation, where the modern biology has generated a huge, enormous amount of data, genomics, proteomics, metabolomics, imaging data, electronic health records, and also published literature, huge amount of data where the inability to manage, classify, and derive insights from this huge voluminous data, which is highly fragmented. Previously, we don't have the tools. Now with AML, we have that capacity to work with this fragmented data. And this fragmented data is not only fragmented, but also on top of that, it's fragmented across different institutions, systems, different formats. And all this data is sitting in silos. And there's no crosstalk between this data, and also connecting the dots is very important to derive valuable insights into this data, and that can be actionable. So data is one thing. The data is sitting there in silos and you cannot act upon it. It cannot be translated into a proper drug discovery efforts. That's the second one, second bottleneck. First one is target selection, data fragmentation. Third one is late stage attrition. So majority of drugs or compounds that are in clinical trials fail in phase 2 and phase 3. If we can identify or predict which of these compounds that have advanced so far, so over several years, if you can predict the reasons they fail because of lack of efficacy or toxicity, sometimes both. So if you can predict ADME properties or PKPD properties or toxicity, and also some of the patient selection criteria, identify right biomarkers earlier, you can actually reduce the failure rate before you invest billions of dollars at the stage where it's going to fail. So the critical step, now we have the tools to be able to predict whether drugs, predict early whether some, and rule out some of the weak candidates, weak drugs that currently are going into clinical trials. So there's a statistic that shows that you can improve the success rate or probability of success clinical trials if you have right biomarker. So there's been last 50 years, they have taken data and looked at trials, clinical trials with and without biomarkers. They significantly, you can improve the success rate of clinical trials in phase 2 and phase 3 if you have right biomarker. Trials that did not have a biomarker, proper biomarker, the failure rate is much higher than the clinical trials that had the right biomarker. So now we have the tools that can discover all these three.
Can you also briefly explain what is a biomarker?
So you are doing clinical trials of a new drug. Very simply, I'm going to put it, right, without going into deeper into biology. But you're giving a new drug to a patient and expecting, for in case of oncology, how do you know whether the drug is working or not? Unless you measure something in your body, for example, a blood, some marker in the blood, a protein in the blood, that the drug is actually doing what it is meant to do. It is actually modulating the right target. You need a biomarker for that. That we call a target engagement biomarker.
So to measure if it is going to the target or not,
yes,
that measurement is called biomarker.
Not the measurement. You need to measure something.
Yes.
What you measure is called the biomarker.
Okay.
You need to measure something, right?
Okay.
The something is the biomarker. How you measure is you can use different technologies, whatever, right? So we're not going to technology.
Yeah.
But what you measure is the biomarker.
So better the biomarker, better the drug.
You can predict the success rate of the drug.
Success rate of drug.
Success of the drug. You can improve the chances. This is just one of the biomarkers. There are different biomarkers.
Okay.
That this is called a target engagement biomarker. Right? You're engaging the target. So like that, you have several biomarkers. Can you predict whether the drug is working or not? Even before you complete the clinical trials, can you predict whether a particular patient is responding? So you have biomarkers for that. It's called predictive biomarker.
Okay, got it.
So you can measure all these things. If you validated these biomarkers before you went to the clinic, you identified the right biomarker, and also you can, based on certain patient stratification biomarkers, you can improve the success rate. For example, a patient with a set of biomarkers are more likely to be benefited with a certain drug. So they're more likely to be cured with a certain drug. Patients who do not have this biomarker are likely to not respond to the drug. So if you can, before you do the trials, if you stratify the patients who are likely to respond, that means who are likely to be successful and cure their disease, and those people who do not respond, if you stratify this population separately, you exactly know which patients respond, give that drug trial to the patients who are likely to respond, you are likely to get success rate. So all this now can be predicted with higher accuracy with the AI/ML tools right now. So this makes a tremendous difference to success of drug discovery.
That's amazing. And how is AI and machine learning changing the patterns of drug discovery?
Yeah, that's again a good question, right? So that we need to go back to understand what is traditional drug discovery, right? Traditional drug discovery has been done, as I said, the statistic 8 to 10 years and $1 billion on average it costs, right? So the computational efforts with AI/ML, we're actually impacting 3 areas of traditional drug discovery and make it more efficient and quicker. So traditional drug discovery has been hypothesis driven, where you put forth a hypothesis and test the hypothesis by designing experiments. And after designing experiments, you wait for the results for the experiments, analyze it, and then iterate the process and repeat the process multiple times. Traditional drug discovery is, and it's also hypothesis driven and very sequential. So when you say sequential, suppose you have 10 steps in traditional drug discovery, one after the other, right? So you wait for the first step to finish, the results of that, then you go to second step, very sequential. That leads to lot of time, right?
Yeah.
It's slow, the slowness that you mentioned,
Yeah.
right? One of the aspect is the sequential aspect of drug discovery leads to, contributes to slowness and hypothesis driven. The AML now is transforming that into a hypothesis-driven drug discovery into data-driven drug discovery. Modern biology generates huge petabytes and terabytes of data, which is genomics, proteomics, and imaging, lots of data sets. And with AML, you can actually analyze these millions of data points can be analyzed that the modern biology generated in even hours,
Wow.
and bring out associations. For example, I mentioned target selection very important, right? From biology standpoint, it can analyze computationally millions of data points in a very short time, which takes for humans years and years, sometimes in days or even hours, and can lead to target selection, for example, biology. But from chemistry standpoint, which is the drug discovery, you can screen millions of compounds very effectively in a very short time, millions of compounds. Plus, you can, instead of sequential, you can do multiple steps of drug discovery, especially compound identifying novel lead series and lead compounds in parallel, as opposed to sequential. As I mentioned, sequential, right? First step, then second step.
Yeah.
But you can do most of the steps in parallel. Instead of doing one after the other, you do few of them at the same time. For example, while you're looking for efficacy or screening compounds for efficacy, at the same time, you can also look for ADME properties and also toxicity all in parallel. And then you can all eliminate the weak candidates very early. Whereas in the sequential step, it will take a long time before you realize it's a weak candidate before you're throwing them out.
That's why it's also expensive?
The traditional one is expensive,
traditional
sequential,
one, yeah.
and that takes means many years. This, if you're lucky, fortunate, you can do it in months' time.
Wow.
Years to months, reduce the time, which means the cost also is reduced. Time is money, right? So by reducing the time, you're also reducing the cost.
So
that is,
yes.
I mean, out of three, I touched upon only one, right?
Yeah.
How AML is enabling drug
Yes.
discovery, right? One is hypothesis-driven to data-driven. The second one is you're compressing the iterative cycles. So several steps has to be repeated over and over and over, right? Example, virtual screening, where you say iterative cycle, something called DMTA cycle: design, make, test, analyze cycles. So these cycles are repeated over and over. When you compress that using AIML significantly, you do not have to, you can reduce the DMT cycle from 10 to few of them. That significantly reduces. These are the two things. And the third one is, very importantly, in addition to these two, the most important is the quality of decision making tremendously improves in drug discovery. For example, the quality of decision making at critical go or no-go decisions. For example, you take a drug, you discover that, do you want to go, you find some weaknesses in that, but there's a lot of benefits. At drug discovery scientists at that point, hey, do you want to go or no go? What's the risk involved? If you go, then you are going to clinical trials, associated risk and everything. But no go means you terminate it and go on to a different project, right? The quality, so you are making decision making, that's not very easy. But the quality of decision at the critical go or no-go juncture, you can make highly quality decisions. More confidence
Better
and
decisions.
more accuracy, you can make decisions. Can we go forward or kill it or no-go? Those decisions can tremendously be improved with confidence, and that's what AIML enables it as the third impact over traditional drug discovery. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a lot of AI in drug discovery, whatever I understood from the things you explained. And it's amazing to see how it's changing and how it's transforming. Since when we have started incorporating so much AI in the process of the drug discovery?
AI has been there for a long time in drug
Okay.
discovery, but it's not called AI/ML as such. Now we're using AI/ML more frequently and as a common use, as a common usage. AI/ML, the terminology has come into common usage. But even before that, there are tools, AI tools in drug discovery. But now the scale of that has gone up. Usage and implementation of technologies, because some of the technologies have evolved, and the models, algorithm based, we can design models using novel algorithms. It has come into more common usage, AI/ML. So, for example, there are companies like Schrödinger which have been using AI for a while. They have developed tools for a while, several decades. Schrödinger, but nobody called them AI those days. But these tools are available, but it's become more common usage last 10 years, even more so last for 5 years. And it'll be coming into more, almost every company now to come to a stage where companies cannot survive in terms of adoption of technology without AI/ML, because they'll be competed out. If you do not use the technology, your competitors are using. They're discovering drugs faster, make it more efficient. So you need to employ these technologies to keep up with the pace and with the competition. For example, as I mentioned, Schrödinger, right? Previously, they've been using AI. No one called it AI in drug discovery for a limited use case, like for compound optimization. Only chemistry part of it. Now AI/ML has penetrated every aspect of drug discovery into biology, chemistry. Previously, it was not into so much into biology. Prior to 10 or 20 years ago, it was not. But now AI/ML based models has penetrated into every aspect of drug discovery, starting from biology, chemistry, and clinical in the clinic. So its adoption has increased vastly across different areas of drug discovery.
I have two questions for you. You mentioned about cost, and it's reducing with the usage of AI and machine learning. Will it be reduced for common man as well? And second question, where do you see AI and ML going for in the drug discovery in maybe 10 years? Where do you see that happening? What is the progress that we can see in the drug discovery?
So the whole goal, at least I can speak about the company I currently work with, as you mentioned, right? So I work for Solix Technologies, and its pharma division is called Solix AI Pharma. The vision of our CEO, the solutions that we're building is to translate into patient cost. Reduce patient cost. Because novel drug discovery or traditional drug discovery is not cheap. The cost of novel drugs are extremely high, because you're putting $1 billion to $2 billion. You have to recover that amount of money, not only on the success one, on all the failed one also, because you're putting so much money, you're investing billions of dollars. But with AI/ML, you can reduce the time and cost. So the whole vision of our CEO, why he entered into, we are a technology company. We have nothing to do with pharma or healthcare, right? The goal of that is to evolve from technology company to benefit patients. That's his vision. That's why we are in Pharma AI, which has been a year and a half into existence. We are a startup within a broader Solix ecosystem, is to translate the efficiency involved to a lower cost to the patient. That's the vision of a CEO, which one of the jobs I have to translate that into reality.
And the future of drug discovery with AI and ML.
Yeah, that's there's a lot of hype, but there's also reality which we cannot overlook. Every pharma company has to be aligned, and you start using AI/ML technologies to efficiencies to expedite the process. Whatever they're doing, it could be drug discovery, small molecule drug discovery, biologicals. It impacts every modality of drugs. So that brings to one more related question that I would like to answer, which is, are there any success stories that that have come up using AI/ML? Drugs that have come up using entirely AI/ML discovered drugs that are in the clinic. So at present, some of the AI/ML discovered drugs are in the clinical trials.
Wow, okay.
So, for example, there's a company called In Silico Medicine. It has discovered the first AI, to my knowledge, AIML, artificially intelligence discovered drug, which is an IPF inhibitor, which is in the clinic. They were able to reduce 4 to 6 years to 18 months, the discovery,
Wow.
1.5 year, 1.5 to 2 years. They reduced it by 3 times. And the cost for preclinical drug discovery from 400 million to 40 million. 10 times they were able to decrease the cost. The first AI discovered drugs is currently in clinical trials. So once it's approved, that will be the first, hopefully it gets approved. So I just gave you one example. There's so many others that are in the pipeline. Several of them are in the clinical trials right now.
Amazing.
That creates a lot of hope, and that itself brought down preclinical drug discovery cost by 10 times. And the time to preclinical trials by 3 times. That's the potential of drug discovery.
That's a lot of time reduced.
But again, I said there's a lot of hype, right? So how do you translate the hype into reality? So companies have to be need to understand what constitutes hype versus reality and work according to that. AI is not a magic wand that brings everything to success. You have to work with the right set of data. Data, although it's to be, as I said, right? Any data is not good. So AI can work only if the data is something called AI-ready data. Any data is, AI cannot be efficient or give you the desired outputs with any data. It can only give you the outputs that you're looking at, only AI-ready data. And one of the things we are looking at Solix, my goal is to enable AI-ready data, not just work with any data, and that's what we are working with, and that's one of the goals, to offer solutions that we have the best kind of data, highly efficient AI-ready data, structured, cleaned AI-ready data to work with.
That's amazing. I have one last question for you, and it's a very common question for all the youngsters who are getting into this field of drug discovery. What should youngsters be looking at, and how should they prepare for the industry they're getting into? Because you have been working in this industry for decades. What would you like to tell our listeners who are youngsters, who are studying pharma or biology, or who are planning to get into drug discovery?
What advice or suggestions can offer to young scientists? Youngsters meaning, to be more specific, say rather than any youngster, but I would
somebody
say
who wants to get into this industry.
Young scientists, or who wants to get into the field of biology, drug discovery, or AI, right? So let me go back to mine. So I had domain expertise, right?
Yes.
Domain expertise. Right now I'm learning some basic AI, understanding of what AI tools, what's there at AIML that I can employ to expedite drug discovery, to utilize for the benefit of my domain and also for Solix solutions. So I would say, for youngsters or young scientists who have some understanding of biology, who have trained in biology, to also learn and equip themselves some of the basic foundational knowledge of AIML technologies. They might not, they don't have to learn a lot of coding and all that, but acquire enough knowledge to use AIML technologies, or at least employ them to benefit or the domain benefit. Like if they're biologists or a chemist, they need to understand what is out there that can be used to expedite their scientific work or drug discovery work, whatever. So I would call it embrace the hyphen. So biology and AI technology, embrace the hyphen. You don't have to be deep for young scientists. You don't have to have deep knowledge on both, but I would say embrace the hyphen. If you're an expert in biology, learn enough of AML so that you can make efficient drug discovery or whatever you're doing. If in academia, efficient analysis of your results, for example, you're generating in the lab. How do you employ AML technologies to derive insights into that? So enough knowledge. So that's why I called hyphen, embrace the hyphen.
Get themselves equipped with AI, whatever they can learn, so that it helps them when they actually
enough AI.
Enough AI, yeah.
So that you also future-proofing. You also need to have a stable job, and also following your passion if you're a scientist. So you're likely to be, if you understand some of the foundational AIML thing, you are actually also future-proofing your job, right?
That's true. AI is everywhere.
AI is everywhere.
On that note, thank you so much, Raju, for speaking with us and telling us so many insights about drug discovery. It's amazing to listen to you experts and I mean, something like that coming from expert like you, it means a lot. And thank you so much. I hope our listeners have also benefited from the conversation we had, and you got to know what you have to prepare if you have to get into drug discovery industry. Thank you so much.